Welcome back to our channel, Soap Fans. Today is a phenomenal day to dive deep into the most explosive drama Los Angeles has to offer. We have breaking updates that will leave you absolutely breathless. Settle in, brace yourselves, and let's get straight to the jaw-dropping action. The collision course was set the moment the first sketch was drawn, a high-speed train of betrayal and obsession barreling toward an inevitable catastrophic derailment. Destiny does not whisper in Los Angeles, it screams. And this week, the deafening roar of fractured marriages and predatory schemes will echo through the halls of Forrester Creations and the shadowy corners of the Cliff House. The stakes have never been higher, the betrayals have never been deeper, and the fallout will leave a trail of absolute devastation. The atmosphere inside the Forrester mansion is suffocating, thick with the kind of tension that precedes a massive earthquake. Ridge Forrester paces the hardwood floors, his jaw clenched so tight it looks ready to shatter. The image of his father, Eric Forrester, battered, bruised, and bleeding on the floor of the bikini bar, is burning relentlessly behind his eyes. Well, Spencer's violent assault on the Forrester patriarch has drawn a permanent, bloody line in the sand. There's no more room for neutrality. There's no more room for compromise. You're either a loyal Forrester or you're the sworn enemy. Ridge expects his wife to stand by his side. He expects Brooke Logan to close ranks, to defend his family, and to unite in their absolute rage against the Spencers and Logan designs. He believes, foolishly, that their marriage can withstand the corporate bloodbath happening outside their doors. But Destiny has a cruel sense of humor, and Ridge is about to walk straight into a nightmare. Ridge pushes open the heavy oak doors of the private study, expecting to find Brooke working on the upcoming Forrester couture line. He expects to see his wife dedicating her brilliance to his family's legacy. Instead, he walks into a scene of absolute, unforgivable betrayal. Brooke is huddled over a sprawling mahogany desk. Standing right beside her, leaning in close, is Hope Logan. Spread across the desk are dozens of vibrant, cutting-edge fashion sketches. These are not Forrester designs. The silhouettes, the fabrics, the bold new aesthetic. These are the blueprints for the upcoming Logan Designs collection. Ridge freezes in the doorway. The air violently leaves his lungs. He watches, paralyzed by a sickening wave of shock, as Brooke points to a bold sketch on the page. She is actively offering her daughter expert advice on how to elevate the Logan collection. She is telling Hope exactly how to crush the Forrester competition. Brooke is actively consulting for the enemy camp. The betrayal hits Ridge like a physical blow to the chest. What the hell is going on here? Ridge's voice detonates in the quiet room, a low, dangerous growl that makes both women jump out of their skin. Hope scrambles to gather the sketches, her eyes wide with sudden panic. She tries to sweep the evidence off the desk, but she is not fast enough. Ridge crosses the room in 3 massive, furious strides. He slams his hand down on the desk with a deafening crack, pinning a sketch of a Logan showstopper beneath his palm. He looks at Brooke. The fury in his eyes is absolute, a cold, unyielding fire that promises total destruction. Brooke tries to explain. She stammers, her voice trembling as she frantically tries to justify her actions. She claims she is just being a mother. She insists she is only helping her flesh and blood. Hope is her daughter, and she cannot simply turn her back on her child's creative dreams, regardless of what logo is printed on the building. Ridge is not hearing a single word of it. He does not care about maternal instincts right now. He cares about loyalty, and he cares about the blood spilled by the Spencers. He leans in close to Brooke, his voice shaking with a rage so profound it vibrates through the floorboards. He reminds Brooke of what just happened. He forces her to remember the violent reality of this corporate war. He reminds her that Will Spencer, the golden boy of the Spencer family, violently assaulted Eric Forrester. He reminds her that the revered patriarch of the Forrester family was left unconscious because of a Spencer's uncontrollable rage. And you are helping them? Ridge roars, the sound echoing violently off the walls. You are helping the very people who are actively trying to destroy this family. Hope tries to intervene. She steps between them, her chin raised in fierce defiance, telling Ridge to back off and leave her mother alone. Hope declares that this is about fashion and family, not a street brawl. Ridge doesn't even look at Hope. His eyes are locked onto Brooke, burning with a cold, unforgiving intensity. He points a trembling finger at the door, silently ordering Hope to get out. Hope hesitates, looking desperately at her mother, but Brooke gives her a tearful, defeated nod. Hope gathers her remaining sketches and flees the room, the heavy oak doors slamming shut behind her. The moment the door clicks shut, the true devastation begins. Ridge does not yell anymore. The silence that follows is infinitely more terrifying than his shouting. He walks over to the window, staring out at the sprawling Los Angeles skyline, his broad shoulders rising and falling with heavy, measured breaths. When he finally speaks, his voice is devoid of all warmth. It is the voice of a man who has reached his absolute breaking point. Ridge delivers a devastating, earth-shattering ultimatum. "You have a choice to make, Brooke," Ridge says, his words cutting through the air like a serrated blade. "Right here, right now." Brooke shakes her head, tears streaming down her face, begging him not to do this. She pleads with him not to make her choose between the two halves of her heart. "It is me, or it is Hope," Ridge declares, turning to face her with eyes like shattered glass. "It is our marriage, or it is Logan Designs." Brooke gasps, her hand flying to her mouth. The sheer, unadulterated cruelty of the demand knocks the wind completely out of her. Ridge is unyielding. He states, with terrifying calm, that he will not share a bed with a woman who is actively plotting the downfall of his family's legacy. He will not stay married to someone who supports the people who physically attacked his father. He tells Brooke that she must cut all ties with Hope's professional life at Logan Designs. She must turn her back on the enemy camp entirely, without exception, without hesitation. "If you walk out that door and go to another Logan meeting," Ridge vows, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper, "I will have the divorce papers drawn up and signed before you even make it to the parking lot." The ultimatum hangs in the air, heavy, suffocating, and terrifyingly real. Brooke completely breaks down. A feral, gut-wrenching scream of pure despair rips from her throat. She collapses against the edge of the mahogany desk, her legs giving out beneath her as the weight of the moment crushes her spirit. She realizes in this horrifying, agonizing second that the fashion war has done the impossible. It has breached the sacred walls of her home. It is actively tearing her marriage apart, piece by bloody piece. Brooke sobs uncontrollably, trapped in an impossible, inescapable nightmare. She is being forced to choose between the love of her life and the daughter she brought into this world. Ridge does not move to comfort her. He stands like a stone statue, cold and immovable, waiting for her answer. The line has been drawn. The Forrester-Logan War has claimed its biggest casualty yet, and the collateral damage is catastrophic. But while the Forrester mansion is drowning in tears and brutal ultimatums, a far more sinister, life-threatening danger is creeping through the shadows of the Cliff House. John Finnegan made a bold, decisive move. He looked Sheila in the eye and delivered a firm, uncompromising rejection. He banned her from his life. He banned her from his family. He told her, in no uncertain terms, that she would never be welcome near his wife or his children. Finn thought that would be the end of it. He thought Sheila would finally accept defeat, pack her bags, and walk away into the darkness. Finn was dangerously, tragically wrong. Sheila does not accept defeat. When the front door is slammed in her face, she simply circles the perimeter until she finds an open window. Rejected, furious, and deeply humiliated, Sheila pivots to a new, terrifyingly dark scheme. If she cannot appeal to her son's logic or his heart, she will exploit the absolute weakest link in the Finnegan fortress. That weak link is Taylor Hayes. Taylor has been blinded by a foolish, incredibly naive optimism. She genuinely believes that Sheila is a reformed woman. She has been vouching for Sheila, defending her to anyone who will listen, and risking her own professional credibility on the absurd, dangerous notion that a psychopath can simply change her stripes overnight. Sheila knows exactly how to use this blind, misplaced trust to her ultimate advantage. The sun is setting over the Pacific Ocean, casting long, ominous, blood-red shadows across the Cliff House living room. The sound of crashing waves masks the sound of approaching footsteps. Taylor is inside, sipping tea, completely unaware that she is being actively hunted. Sheila lurks in the dense bushes outside the glass doors, her eyes locked onto the ultimate prize. Baby Hayes is sitting in his playpen in the center of the room, babbling happily, playing with his toys, completely oblivious to the apex predator watching him from the darkness. Sheila's eyes gleam with a manic, terrifyingly possessive hunger. She needs to prove to Finn and Steffi that she is vital to this family. She needs to manufacture a scenario where she is the undeniable, indispensable hero. She needs to create a life-or-death situation that only she can solve. She waits in the shadows, her breathing slow and measured, waiting for the perfect, fatal moment. Taylor steps into the kitchen to grab a fresh bottle from the fridge, leaving the sliding glass door unlocked to let in the cool ocean breeze. It is a fatal, catastrophic mistake. Sheila slips inside the house with the silent, lethal grace of a striking viper. She doesn't make a single sound as her boots cross the threshold. She approaches the playpen. She reaches out, her trembling, eager fingers hovering just inches from her grandson's innocent face. To execute her twisted, psychotic plan, Sheila orchestrates a fake, high-stakes emergency. She notices a heavy, solid bronze decorative vase sitting precariously close to the edge of the coffee table, positioned directly above where Hayes has tossed his favorite stuffed animal. Sheila deliberately, calculatingly nudges the table with her hip. The heavy bronze vase teeters, loses its balance, and threatens to crash down directly onto the child's play area. In a flash of calculated, theatrical heroics, Sheila dives forward. She catches the heavy vase just millimeters before it shatters, dramatically throwing her own body over the edge of the playpen to shield Hayes from the imaginary danger. "I've got you, sweetheart. Grandma's here. Grandma saved you," Sheila proclaims loudly, making absolutely sure her voice carries clearly into the kitchen. Taylor rushes into the room, her eyes wide with sudden, gripping alarm. She sees Sheila clutching the heavy vase, breathing heavily, playing the role of the traumatized, selfless savior to absolute perfection. Taylor buys it completely, hook, line, and sinker. She gasps, rushing forward, thanking Sheila profusely, genuinely believing that this woman just saved her precious grandson from a terrible, bloody accident. Sheila smirks, soaking in the misguided, pathetic gratitude. Her plan is working flawlessly. She has manipulated the brilliant psychiatrist with terrifying ease. But Sheila's twisted victory is cut violently, abruptly short. The front door flies open with a loud bang, and Steffi Forster Finnegan walks in. Steffi stops dead in her tracks. Her keys drop from her hand, clattering loudly against the hardwood floor. The color instantly drains from her face, replaced by a mask of pure, unadulterated terror. Steffi does not see a hero. She does not see a reformed grandmother making amends. Steffi sees the woman who shot her in a dark alley, the woman who left her and her husband to bleed to death in the trash, currently hovering over her infant son. She sees the sick, possessive, unhinged gleam in Sheila's eyes as she clutches the edge of Hayes's playpen. A primal, terrifying, volcanic rage explodes inside Steffi. "Get your hands off my son." Steffi's voice is a sonic boom of pure, maternal fury, shaking the very foundation of the Cliff House. She charges across the room like a fiercely protective lioness. She doesn't wait for an explanation. She doesn't ask what happened. She doesn't care about the vase. Steffi violently shoves Sheila backward, ripping Hayes out of the playpen and holding him tight against her chest. She backs away instantly, putting as much physical distance between her child and the monster as humanly possible. Sheila immediately plays the victim. She raises her hands in mock surrender, her eyes wide with fake innocence, her voice dripping with manipulative sweetness. Steffi, please. You don't understand. I was just saving him. The heavy vase was going to fall right on his head. Sheila pleads, looking desperately to Taylor for backup. Steffi isn't buying a single venomous word of it. She sees right through the sick, twisted, psychotic charade. You staged this. Steffi screams, her eyes blazing with absolute, unfiltered hatred. You came into my home, you threatened my child, and you staged this sick little rescue to manipulate your way back in. You are a psychopath, Sheila. You will never change. Steffi points a violently shaking finger at the open door, her voice echoing off the high ceilings of the Cliff house, filled with lethal promise. Get out. Get out of my house before I kill you myself. I will end you right here. The tension in the room is thick enough to choke on. The air is crackling with the promise of violence. But then, the unthinkable, the unimaginable happens. Taylor steps forward. She steps directly between Steffi and Sheila, acting as a human shield for the enemy. Taylor raises her hands, trying to calm her frantic daughter down. She actually opens her mouth to defend the psychopath who nearly destroyed their entire family. Steffi, wait. Please listen to me, Taylor says, her voice pleading, desperate for Steffi to see reason. Sheila is telling the truth. I saw it happen with my own eyes. She saved Hayes. She really has changed. Steffi, she is trying. You have to give her a chance to prove herself. Steffi stares at her mother in absolute, paralyzing horror. The betrayal is incomprehensible. Steffi cannot process what she is hearing. Her own mother, the woman who is supposed to protect her, the woman who knows the trauma Sheila inflicted, is actively defending the monster in their living room. Steffi's heart shatters into a million jagged, irreparable pieces. She looks at Taylor, her eyes welling with hot tears of profound betrayal and blinding, suffocating rage. Are you out of your mind? Steffi whispers, her voice cracking under the immense weight of the heartbreak. She shot us, Mom. She left Finn and me to die in an alley. She's a murderer, and you are taking her side? Over your own daughter? Over your own grandson? Taylor tries to reach out, try to explain her twisted, manipulated logic, trying to bridge the massive gap she has just created, but Steffi violently recoils. She shields Hayes with her body, looking at her mother as if she is a complete stranger. Sheila stands in the background, a wicked, triumphant, evil smile playing on her lips. She didn't just get access to Hayes. She successfully detonated a nuclear bomb right in the middle of the Finnegan family. She has turned mother against daughter. Steffi looks at Taylor, her expression hardening into a mask of pure, unforgiving ice. The fragile peace of the Finnegan household has officially, permanently collapsed. If you stand with her, Steffi vows, her voice dropping to a terrifyingly calm, dead whisper, if you defend that monster for one more second, then you're no longer welcome in this house either. The sacred mother-daughter bond fractures with a deafening, tragic crack. Taylor gasps, stepping back as if she has been physically struck, the reality of her foolishness finally dawning on her. Steffi turns her back on both of them, marching down the hallway with Hayes safely in her arms, leaving Taylor alone with the devil she invited in. The war has escalated beyond repair. The casualties are mounting by the second, and Sheila has just proven, once again, that she is more dangerous, more manipulative, and more lethal than ever before. Will Brooke sign the divorce papers to save hope, or will her marriage to Ridge become the ultimate casualty? Next, the trajectory of a single, reckless fist is about to rewrite the entire balance of power in Los Angeles. When will Spencer pull his arm back in the neon-lit chaos of the bikini bar? His blinding rage was locked entirely on R.J. Forrester. But fate, in its most cruel and unforgiving form, intervened. The punch missed its intended target and collided with the most devastating, unthinkable obstacle imaginable, Eric Forrester. The sickening, visceral crack of bone against bone echoed through the room, an inevitable collision of explosive Spencer anger and fragile Forrester pride. In a fraction of a second, a petty generational rivalry escalated into a catastrophic event with high-stakes consequences that will shatter two powerful families forever. The visual horror of the patriarch's fall is a cinematic nightmare playing out in agonizing slow motion. Eric Forrester, the legendary titan of the fashion industry, does not merely stumble from the sheer force of Will's heavyweight blow. He is violently launched backward, his body sent crashing brutally into a nearby table. The impact is deafening. Solid wood splinters under his weight. Heavy glass shatters into 1,000 jagged pieces, and the chaotic spray of spilled drinks rains down around him. It is a terrifying, physical manifestation of the Forrester-Spencer war reaching its absolute, unforgivable boiling point. A suffocating, deadening silence instantly swallows the bikini bar. The pulsating music seems to vanish, replaced by the sheer, paralyzing shock of the bystanders. Then, Elektra Forrester's piercing, blood-curdling scream shatters the vacuum. It is a visceral, agonizing sound of pure trauma, the voice of a young woman watching her beloved grandfather violently broken by the very man she once loved. R.J. Forrester stands frozen in absolute horror, his eyes wide, his breath hitched as he stares at the crumpled, motionless body of the man who built their family empire. Well, Spencer is entirely paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of his own catastrophic mistake. He stands rooted to the floor, his knuckles still burning from the impact, his chest heaving with adrenaline and sudden, overwhelming terror. He stares down at the destruction he just unleashed, the horrifying realization crashing over him like a tidal wave. He did not mean to strike the elderly patriarch, but in the brutal reality of this feud, intentions mean absolutely nothing. The king of Los Angeles fashion is down, and Will is the one holding the smoking gun. Pure, unadulterated panic ignites the room as Elektra and RJ snap out of their frozen shock and drop frantically to their knees amidst the shattered glass and splintered wood. Their hands hover over Eric's battered form, terrified that moving him might cause irreversible spinal damage. They're begging him to open his eyes, their voices cracking with desperation as they plead with the paralyzed bystanders to call an ambulance immediately. The sheer desperation in Elektra's voice is haunting, a desperate plea for a miracle in the middle of a nightmare. But then, the most dangerous element of this entire crisis rears its head. Eric Forrester's legendary, stubborn pride. He groans, his eyelids fluttering as consciousness slowly returns. Instead of staying down, instead of accepting the critical medical intervention he so desperately needs, a fatal arrogance takes over. He refuses to look weak, especially not in front of Spencer, and certainly not after the humiliating public meltdown he recently suffered. With a trembling but forceful motion, he pushes RJ and Elektra's frantic hands away. "I'm perfectly fine," Eric rasps, his voice shaky but laced with absolute, ironclad defiance. He waves off their frantic concerns, brushing the catastrophic, bone-rattling blow aside, as if he merely tripped over a rug. He insists he was simply startled by the commotion, a blatant, dangerous lie that everyone in the room can see right through. The sheer absurdity of his claim is terrifying. He just absorbed a full-force punch from a furious young man and crashed through solid furniture. Yet he is actively refusing to acknowledge the trauma. The struggle to stand is a horrifying spectacle of forced endurance. RJ and Elektra desperately try to keep him grounded, begging him to stay still and head straight to the emergency room for a comprehensive evaluation. But Eric forces himself upward. Anyone watching closely can see the hidden, agonizing wince, the slight, dangerous sway in his posture the absolute agony he is masking behind a forced, reassuring smile. He is playing a lethal game of Russian roulette with his own life, prioritizing his ego over his survival. Eric demands to be taken home immediately, flatly refusing to wait for the paramedics that are surely rushing to the scene. He walks out of the bikini bar with his head held as high as his battered body will allow, leaving Will Spencer standing alone in the wreckage of his own making. The physical altercation may have ended, but the true, silent nightmare is only just beginning. Eric's refusal to seek real medical care is a ticking time bomb that threatens to detonate at any given second. The transition to the Forrester mansion shifts the narrative from explosive violence to a thick, suffocating dread. The grand estate, usually a beacon of elegance and power, now feels like a high-stakes, terrifying waiting room. Ridge Forrester paces the expansive living room floor like a caged tiger, his jaw clenched so tightly it looks ready to shatter. The horrifying news of the assault has reached him, and his fury is a living, breathing entity, barely contained beneath his tailored suit. The moment Eric walks through the heavy front doors, Ridge descends upon him with the desperate urgency of a terrified son. Ridge does not approach him as a co-CEO. He approaches him as a man who has almost lost his father too many times before. Ridge begs, demands, and pleads with Eric to let a doctor examine him properly. He knows the brutal, unforgiving reality of blunt force head trauma, especially for a man with Eric's extensive and fragile medical history. Eric's refusal is absolute and terrifyingly calm. He stands in the center of his grand living room, looks his desperate son dead in the eye, and shuts the conversation down completely. He claims he is only a little rattled, nothing more, dismissing Ridge's frantic concerns with a wave of his hand. It is a masterclass in stubborn denial. Eric absolutely refuses to let the Spencers think they have physically broken him, prioritizing his untouchable patriarch persona over his own physiological reality. Brooke and Donna watch the tense exchange from the edge of the room, their faces etched with mounting, unspeakable terror. Donna's hands are trembling uncontrollably, her eyes wide with fear. She knows her husband better than anyone in the world, and she can see the subtle, terrifying tremors, the slightly unfocused, glassy gaze that Eric is so desperately trying to hide from his son. The silent communication between the two sisters speaks volumes. They know something is horribly wrong. Donna finally steps forward, her voice breaking as she delivers a heartbreaking plea. She begs her husband to just get checked out, reminding him of everything they have to lose and the terrifying health scares they have barely survived in the past. But Eric simply offers her a warm, entirely dismissive smile. He gently pats her trembling hand, assuring her that the resilient patriarch of the Forrester family cannot possibly be taken down by a single, accidental punch from a reckless boy. Brooke watches the scene with a calculating, feral protective instinct kicking into overdrive. She knows that if Eric falls, the fragile, fractured peace in Los Angeles will instantly vaporize into a full-scale war. She sees the silent danger building beneath the surface, the invisible, lethal threat that is far more dangerous than any runway rivalry, stolen design, or corporate sabotage. Eric's stubbornness is paving the way for a tragedy that will scorch the earth. The medical reality of this ticking time bomb is absolutely terrifying. A blow to the head of that extreme magnitude, followed by a violent crash into a solid table, is a textbook recipe for a catastrophic subdural hematoma. A slow, creeping brain bleed that shows absolutely no immediate, outward symptoms until it is entirely, fatally too late. Eric is walking around his mansion with a loaded gun pointed directly at his brain, completely oblivious to the trigger being pulled. As the family briefly turns away to discuss their next move, the terrifying truth of Eric's condition is briefly exposed. A sudden, sharp wince crosses his face. His hand subtly shoots out to brace against a heavy armchair to steady a sudden, violent wave of vertigo. A momentary, terrifying lapse in focus glazes over his eyes. These are the blaring red flags of a man whose brain is actively swelling, a silent, ruthless killer working its way through his system while he forces a smile. It is no longer a question of if Eric Forster will collapse, but exactly when the devastating moment will strike. He could be standing in the bustling design room at Forster Creations or simply holding a glass of scotch in his quiet living room when the lights suddenly and violently go out. Catching his family and his company completely off guard, his sudden, terrifying collapse will send absolute shockwaves through the entire Forster dynasty, changing their lives forever. The explosive fallout of his potential hospitalization, or worse, a coma, will be apocalyptic. If Eric hits the floor, the Spencer-Forster feud will instantly escalate from a bitter fashion war to a violent, unforgiving blood feud. Ridge Forster will no longer seek a boardroom victory or a PR win. He will seek the absolute, total destruction of Will Spencer and the entire Spencer bloodline. The gloves will come off, and Ridge's vengeance will be swift and merciless. We have already witnessed Ridge resort to physical violence, brutally punching Bill Spencer in his own office over a mere verbal taunt. If his father is fighting for his life on a ventilator because of Will's reckless rage, Ridge will unleash a wrath so ruthless it will make their past battles look like child's play. He will demand immediate arrests, sweeping restraining orders, and the complete financial dismantling of Katie and Bill's Logan designs. Bill Spencer's current gleeful arrogance will shatter instantly. Right now, Bill is soaking up the viral mockery of Eric's recent meltdown, but if Eric goes into a coma, Bill will be forced to defend a son who committed an unforgivable, potentially fatal assault. The Spencer war machine will have to pivot violently from corporate gloating to a desperate, high-stakes legal defense, igniting a courtroom and corporate war that will leave no survivors. The emotional destruction of Elektra and Will is absolute. Any lingering, desperate hope for Will and Elektra's romantic reunion is officially dead and buried under the rubble of that shattered table. Elektra will never, ever forgive the man who put her beloved grandfather in the hospital. The severe trauma of watching that brutal punch land will haunt her every waking moment, pushing her permanently into the waiting, fiercely protective arms of R.J. Forrester. R.J.'s dark, dangerous evolution will be complete. Watching his grandfather suffer because of his own bitter rivalry with Will is going to trigger a ruthless transformation. R.J. will shed his peaceful designer persona and become the ultimate, vengeful Forrester weapon, driven by pure, unadulterated hatred for Will Spencer. The next generation's war has officially begun, and it promises to be even more vicious and unforgiving than the battles of their fathers. Every single moment Eric Forster remains on screen is now a terrifying, breath-holding exercise for the audience. His stubborn, unyielding pride is actively paving the way for the most devastating medical crisis in the show's history. The clock is ticking down to zero. The invisible danger is mounting by the second, and the impending explosion is absolutely inevitable. Will Eric's refusal to seek help be the fatal mistake that finally destroys him, or will the truth come out before it is too late? The entire landscape of Los Angeles fashion and family loyalty hangs precariously in the balance, waiting for the patriarch to finally fall. Will Eric's pride be his ultimate downfall, igniting a Forster-Spencer war with no survivors? Drop your theories below, hit subscribe, and join the debate.